Hello dear students, welcome to our second lab. This lab is on transformer regulation. In this lab we will see how the input and output current and voltage of the transformer change when subjected to resistive load, capacitive load and inductive loads. Firstly, please have a look at table 5.1, 5.2 and 5.3. In these tables, the ZL values will be as follows. Now, let's move on to the procedure. The first part is on the resistive load. You can refer to figure 5.2. This is our E1 in volts, I1 in milliamps, I2 in milliamps and E2 in volts. This is our resistive load. Okay, there are three resistors connected in parallel and the three switches turn these resistors on and off. So if I switch the first one and the second one, that would mean that the first and the second one are connected in parallel. Now we have to adjust E1 to 240 volts. Okay, so E1 is 240 volts. Now let's fill in the table. I will change the resistance values and you have to record E1, I1, I2 and E2. The first ZL value is infinity, which basically means an open circuit. So all the switch in the off position. Please record. Next one is 4800 ohms. Next one is 2400 ohms. Next one is 1600 ohms. Next is 1200 ohms. And lastly 960 ohms. So you will use the values from table 5.1 and calculate your transformer regulation for the resistive load. Let's return the voltage to 0. Now let's move to the second part, which is the inductive load. We will have to fill the table 5.2. So I have the inductive load installed. Okay, let's adjust the input voltage to 240 volts. Okay, so E1 is 240 volts and our first ZL value is infinity. So all switches are in the open position. Please record. Remember, this is E1, I1, I2, E2. Next, 4800 ohms. Next, 2400 ohms. Next 1600 ohms. Next 1200 ohms. Next 960 ohms. Okay, let's return the voltage to 0. Now let's move to the next part, which is variable capacitance load, and we will be filling out table 5.3. The capacitive load has been installed and E1 has been adjusted to 240 volts. So record for the first ZL value, which is infinity, all the switches in the open position. Please record. Next 4800 ohms. Next 2400 ohms. Next 1600 ohms. Next 1200 ohms. And lastly 960 ohms. Okay, now let's return the voltage to 0 and turn off our power supply. So you will have to plot the voltage regulation curve for these three separate loads and do the review questions.